Okay, you're all set.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone in the audience and people at home. Welcome to the November 10th, 2021 Town Board, Town of Newcastle Work Session. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to open the work session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, Ed, you want to maybe kick us off to start things, please?
Sure. So tonight, on the form-based code schedule that had been pushed out and revised a number of times, the board had contemplated considering a motion to accept the finding statement tonight. But in light of the election last week, I understand there's a desire to discuss where we are now and discuss what the path ahead is. The secret process has advanced to the point where the board adopted an FGEIS. So that's a significant milestone in the secret review, but it's not the end point. The end point is the finding statement. So I understand the board wants to spend some time tonight discussing whether there's a desire to go forward to consider the finding statement, and same question with respect to the legislation.
Absolutely. You know, and I should have asked you this before to make it clear. Can you just share what it means, just for example, to have the EIS in place but not the finding statement? What is the value of that or lack of value?
The finding statement, if you remember our last couple of work sessions on this, the finding statement is the document that looks at the proposed action, looks at the alternatives, and then the draft that the board looked at had identified a preferred alternative and had evaluated mitigation measures or thresholds and would have done that weighing of the benefits and the environmental impacts. Again, that's the end point in the environmental review. What preceded that with the DGEIS and the FGEIS was an analysis of the environmental impacts with respect to the 72-acre study area. So all of the analysis, all of the public comment that went into the DGIS and all of the responses to those public comments, that's all part of the environmental record that's been accepted and completed. So it's like I said a moment ago, you've reached a significant juncture in terms of the environmental review, just not the last stop.
So there's some value or use of that information that we've generated over the past year or two.
Yeah, of course. A future applicant for a land use approval who needed to satisfy a lead agency that had a project that required a lead agency, whether it was the town board or the planning board or the zoning board, to make a determination of environmental significance, certainly could look to the analyses that were done in those documents, rely on them, bring them forward to the lead agency and try to make a case for why perhaps some areas of environmental concern had already been addressed and didn't need further study.
Understood. All right. Does anyone have any questions of Ed before we discuss? No? All right. Lauren, do you want to share your thoughts first?
Do you guys mind if I take my mask off?
No, Pete, go ahead.
Thanks. Honestly, it's been hard to articulate how I feel about where we are. I would be lying if I said I was not disappointed, not just personally, but for this board and the town. I think and thought that the form-based code and changes to the way development works in Newcastle will be beneficial for our community. I know many folks disagree, but that is what it was always about for me, making the town better, not the drama or the politics. I ran for town board and ended up getting appointed, not just once but twice, as many of you kindly remind me, mostly to try and to make downtown a better place. It was always this part that excited me. All my public service has focused on that cause. The Chamber of Commerce, Wine Around Town, all the exciting partnerships with the merchants, the Streetscape Committee, Supper on Center, all focused on the hamlet and making it a fun and vibrant place. That natural progression led me and the board to attempt to update a very dated zoning code. I've tried to come up with good ideas, and despite all the angst, I'm happy that I did. I learned a ton, saw what other towns have done, and still have high conviction that it is a great idea. Many residents believe that the form-based code was a good idea, including this whole board at some point. And I believe people changed their minds for political reasons, not because enhancing the town or specifically North Greeley were bad ideas. So today, we regrettably shelve the concept as it is doomed to get caught in the political crossfire. I think it is a sad outcome after countless meetings, the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, endless hours we all spent on due diligence. I find it ironic that some will celebrate a total lack of progress. I think what is poignantly disappointing is that we can't even make progress on an abandoned and dilapidated section of North Greeley. The chained up, empty parking lot, overgrown weeds, unfinished sidewalks, and an empty warehouse look more like a town in decline than one of the nicest towns in America. As the moratorium expires, a big box retailer will likely fill that space, which risks our wonderful merchants' businesses. It reminds me of the long battle of Chappaqua Crossing, where there were endless reasons it would ruin things. Though I've heard no one complaining about the progress, I see all of you at Whole Foods. Progress always has risks, but so does stagnation. I don't know how the new administration will move our town forward. Hopefully, they will take some renamed version of the form-based code as their own, because being stuck in neutral is rarely a good place to be. Thank you.
Lori?
Sure.
Thank you, Lauren. That was wonderful. I joined the town board in January with enthusiasm and curiosity and a desire to contribute my time and talents for a better Newcastle. I was not an architect or a driver of the rezoning initiative, but learned the details quickly, carefully read every document and every public comment, and was ready to dig in to help craft legislation that was responsive to concerns and criticisms, while still having a chance to meet the goals for community investment. This effort was among many other issues facing the town that I continued to be passionate about and disappointed to see cut short. Newcastle has the dubious honor of being the home of the landmark case Berenson versus Newcastle, which in 1975, the state Supreme Court ruled that Newcastle zoning laws were exclusionary, perpetuating a legacy of segregation in the suburbs. That ruling was followed by the construction of townhome developments that have remained in great demand for a wide variety of residents. Some of the most vocal opponents of our current rezoning efforts reside in multifamily housing previously banned by Newcastle's exclusionary zoning. Westchester County remains one of the most segregated areas of the country. As a community, Newcastle is poor for its lack of economic, age, cultural, and racial diversity. Newcastle is not currently providing sufficient opportunity to those outside the age, economic, family structure, and by extension, cultural and racial limitations currently in place with our current restricted housing options. This is merely one reason I have been supportive of an innovative approach to evolving our half-century-old zoning. I was also encouraged by the sustainability benefits of inspiring housing growth through apartments in our downtown hamlet. Downtown multifamily housing is more energy efficient, more carbon neutral, and less destructive to our precious forests and watershed than single-family housing. New construction codes are a robust upgrade in energy efficiency requirements compared to antique buildings. Building codes for new construction requires accessibility improvements for disabled residents, patrons, and pedestrians. New building requires storm and flood resilience. We need downtown shops that do not flood regularly after major storms because they are built below grade. Most impactful for all residents of Newcastle, we need a commercial zone that supports our small businesses with patrons. Pedestrians that live within walking distance who will walk to buy a coffee, a dinner, a gift for their mother. We should not be counting successes by new businesses that open, but businesses that open and stay open because we have provided a more stable and reliable customer base. I have been enthusiastic about the transparency that accompanies a form-based zoning. Transparency in allowable structures, improvements in setbacks and requirements for streetscape sidewalk enhancement, requirements for affordable and workforce housing, transparent requirements for market rate housing to create housing diversity and economically integrated buildings, transparency for the property owner, the developer, the town, and the community with detailed upfront guidelines. Alternatives proposed have been fully amorphous, but seem to rely on existing process coupled with personal negotiations with property owners and developers on a case-by-case basis. In my view, if one were sincere in promoting an investment in North Greeley under these circumstances, I must ponder the unknown concessions needed to inspire such an investment. There are people in this room that have repeatedly referenced a desire to negotiate with property owners on behalf of the town, an approach which most certainly involves unequal results by property, and without upfront transparent expectations, and without transparency around concessions offered as incentive by the town. I'm especially troubled by this approach as there have been those with financial investment in the North Greeley property area as donors to the most recent campaign. I do believe that the town board fell short in its approach to prepare and educate the community about the meaning and limitations of the full build-out scenario drafting. I think it also would have been helpful to redraft and communicate a full build-out scenario for the North Greeley corridor based on the town board's responsiveness to public engagement and the revision of the code reflected. I disagree with the assertion that majority rules in governing. While the majority has a say in who represents them, if majority rule drove legislative choice by representatives, it would be nearly impossible to craft legislation that addressed the needs of minority populations or to assist a community to plan for a future that impacted residents not in the room today. Responsible, diligent, and thoughtful policymaking should trump short-term popularity any day. My decision to not pursue the finding statement or rezoning of North Greeley is not in response to the opinion of a thin majority, but in recognition of the fact that elected members of the next town board have declared they are committed to using the community's resources to undo this legislative action. This is not a constructive application of Newcastle's resources or taxpayer money. I believe this moment is a huge loss for the town of Newcastle. We have missed an opportunity to be a progressive and strategic leader in Westchester County. However, I believe the successfully adopted FGEIS provides a resource for investment in the future of Newcastle, whether it be through a form-based code or another zoning change. The newly elected members of the next town board have not been clear about their priorities or approaches for addressing resilience of our downtown small businesses, addressing exclusionary zoning in Newcastle, interest or prioritization of housing diversity in Newcastle, and mechanisms to address the severe shortage of housing opportunities for empty nesters, young adults, two-household families, integrated, affordable, and workforce housing, approaches to mitigate flooding of downtown businesses or motivate property owners to raise their properties above grade level, approaches to inspire investment in the North Greeley corridor, addressing decades of progressive decline and unmet potential. I hope that the new town board is sufficiently ambitious and diligent starting on day one to be ultimately successful at addressing these challenges and driving change for the sake of the town we love to live in, that they will not have caused our residents and small business owners time, money, and resources to have been squandered this past 2 years and kick the can indefinitely down the road. Thank you.
No, you go.
Nope.
I am not going to go first because you are all aligned, and
Go ahead, Lisa. If you're not going to speak, then don't speak. But
I am going to speak, but given that I'm the only
Lisa-
one on this
Lisa?
dais actually elected
Lisa?
the supervisor, I am taking my
Excuse me?
prerogative to speak last.
Nope. Well, so then I think evidently then that's it. I think we're not going to be moving forward tonight on the form-based code. If Lisa, you'd like to share something, by all means you can. But I think this is done for this conversation. We already have.
It is
Lisa-
not done for this conversation. Jeremy, since this side of the dais is probably just here to malign me and tell me why this is wrong, I would like to be able to respond to everyone at once. So it would behoove you to please give your statement. I'm sure we would all like to hear it.
Lisa, it's not about you. So
It never
again,
was.
you have every right to speak. You have every right to speak. So if you're not going to speak, my position
I am going to
certainly-
speak. I'm
my
asking you
position
to
is
speak
that
first,
I agree with
Jeremy.
my colleagues that we should not move forward. But if you want to say something, by all means, you have a right to.
Okay, so let me get this straight before I speak then. Is everyone else on this table, at this table, is agreeing right now publicly that we will not be adopting a finding statement or a form-based code, period?
I think that's a fair statement.
That's correct. I made that to the,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
All it takes
I
is one.
didn't hear
All
you.
it takes is one person. So whether I think it's very clear, but
Well,
I'm
I'd
sure
like to
that's
hear from
okay.
everyone. I didn't hear.
I said that is correct, Lisa.
And Jeremy?
I just said that was correct as well.
Okay. Okay, well, then I will say something. I'm sure you're going to try to malign me afterward, but I reserve the ability
Absolutely,
to speak
Lisa.
again. So I have prepared remarks. I am happy to hear the thoughts of my fellow town board members. I think it's actually the right move. The form-based code is not political. It's also not a tool for justice. What it is was a mistake that turned out to not be what it was initially intended to be. And it's been said that you should not cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. It's fine that we study the form-based code as a zoning and development plan. And I'm glad that we are all self-aware enough now to recognize that it is not right for our town, and we can't let inertia continue to drag us down a faulty path. And I believe that the recent election was that self-awareness. And by electing the entire Unite Newcastle slate, the residents of Newcastle unequivocally told us that there is no mandate in favor of the form-based code. In fact, not only did the pro-FBC slate fail to achieve a mandate, which should be a precondition to anything as ambitious as a form-based code in our town, but it also failed to achieve a majority and lost that election. As a town board, I fully believe that we serve our constituents, and we have heard, even more than this election, we have heard substantial public outcry and comments from our residents, our planning board, our Board of Education, and they have spoken out with so many concerns that frankly weren't addressed in the generic environmental impact statement, and they were not going to be addressed in a finding statement or a form-based code. So I am relieved that it's not going to move forward because they took their time and energy. They are not being paid and they were not elected, and they cared so much that so many are here tonight actually to speak out against it. And this is what thoughtful advancement looks like. And this is what community input looks like. And this is what's so important. And I'm glad. I was going to ask the board to clearly and unequivocally state that this would not move forward, and I'm really appreciative that you all did. Now, I hear the criticism, and I want to say that that is not to say that we are going to scrap the work that's been done. The beauty, and I've been saying this for months, the beauty of what we've done, while I don't believe it was right for the town, is that we did some financial review, some environmental review, I'm sorry, as flawed as I think some of it was, because I believe it didn't appropriately speak to parking, traffic, financial impacts, school impacts, et cetera. But a lot of it can be used. And we, as a town board, will thoughtfully consider what developers might be able to utilize from this form-based code, and from the FGEIS, in connection with their future development projects. This is going to enhance the speed and review of future projects, because things like stormwater, sewers, things like that will no longer need to be studied by a developer. And when we combine that expedited process with expedited planning board review, which I have been speaking with them about, I think that will significantly enhance the speed by which projects can be done in our town, which, after speaking to developers throughout our downtown, is really what they want in the end. They just want to know what they can do, and they are willing to work with us as a town to make sure that we do the best for our town. My biggest issue with this form-based code was that there was no urban planning. And I don't care how many apartments we build, but if we don't have a plan and we don't have an anchor and we don't have a reason for people to come to this downtown and stay in this downtown and then shop in this downtown and then eat in this downtown, everyone is going to get into their close to 1,000 apartments in their cars that are parked a mile away and go to another town that has that anchor and that has spent the time and the effort doing that actual planning before anything is built. So to me, that's important, and that's what's going to revitalize the downtown. My other concern was also that a lot of residents in our most socioeconomically diverse area were going to be displaced. And I actually saw that very recently just happen, where a developer, in anticipation of this form-based code passing, actually bought an apartment and kicked a resident of 20 years out, raised his rent by over $1,000 a month. When he couldn't pay it, kicked him out. And that's what we are going to see as developers bought up this property to develop. They were going to lose these people, and that displacement plan was not studied. And to me, that was very, very concerning. Now, we all want to revitalize the Chappaqua Hamlet. Nobody said we don't. For our merchants, for our current and our future residents. And Newcastle residents have said they want to be meaningfully engaged in that process. We also have incredibly bright, talented residents, many of whom are sitting here today. And I want to make sure that the wants and the needs of everyone, including our merchants, are included in this process. What else are we going to say here? So just again, I think it's the sworn duty of all of us to be listening to our residents. We represent you. We represent you. This is not about ego. This is not about winning and losing. It's certainly not about courage. This is about responding to direct feedback from our community. We've had thousands of people sign petitions and speak. That cannot be discounted. What has often been mischaracterized, I believe, as the few voices of a loud minority is clearly much more than that. And the outcome of the recent election, to me, is an unambiguous, undeniable statement from our residents that they are looking for a different solution than the one that's been proposed. So I'm glad the board will be tabling any further discussion on a finding statement and a form-based code. And as a new board, I guarantee we will be moving revitalization forward in a way that makes sense for the community and in a way that will actually bring vitality to our community. So in closing, I just want to urge everyone who's here, who's listening, whoever you voted for, the election is behind us. We now need to listen to each other and move forward together as a community. Thank you.
The form-based code has been a long time in the making. I think Lisa and I were probably the only two people who are still here during its inception. Many iterations of the town board, Rob, Jason, Ivy, obviously the folks who are here now, Hala McCoska. On April 23rd of 19, we voted for the initial contract. It was $399,984. After that, there was a few different change orders and iterations and things that came through. In April 2020, a little while after that, about a year, $36,500. As recent as September of 2020, each of us, I think Ivy, Jason, Lisa, and I voted for the contract for Relentless, which was the videos that many of you, I think, here did not approve of. That was voted by all of us then. Other than those votes along the way, I think, Lisa, you might have missed one, but other than the one recent vote that you disapproved of, which was a change order through $95,000, I believe, off the top of my head, we've all been on the same page. In sum, we've probably spent about $600,000 on this project, but I think, as Lisa correctly stated, it's not about spending money and therefore you have to chase your dollars because you spent it already. I think that's absolutely a fair statement. I don't know if Chappaqua or the greater community needs savings, as we saw on many of these signs, but I think if we can learn from our divisiveness, which I'm not blame-free, we must take responsibility of sort of how we ended up here and where we're going forward. Just as many residents likely had reasonable concerns and questions about the form-based code and the finding statement, or some simply disagreed, which is acceptable too, others were misled by fear and misinformation, whether intentional or accidental. Social media, Facebook, websites, mailers lent themselves, to a dynamic where sometimes fiction is misconstrued as fact. I cannot, nor am I interested in going through each one of them, but there's a few that I want to touch on which I think are very important. Out of the gate, one of the first things we heard was about 5 stories the length of King Street, but that was never in the plan. There was a hypothetical maximum build-out that was weaponized and preordained as our future, and it simply wasn't. It needn't be. And whether or not that image was frightening as it was to me when I first saw it, it wasn't our future. It didn't have to be because of all of your involvement. There was a former BOE member who had a findings, if you will, that there was going to be 1,000 new students coming into the Chappaqua School District, and millions of dollars in taxes and costs were going to be borne upon us. And this was shared and spread, and while you may be informed here, many people saw that as the truth. And not a word from Unite Newcastle, and I don't recall anything from the then sitting or current sitting Board of Education saying that is not correct. That is actually in total disagreement with even our own consultants. We heard of school budgets not passing. We heard and received mailers of, quote, overwhelming our schools, and that both the school board and residents were going to be stripped of the rights and the abilities to stop private parties from building, except neither residents nor the school have these types of rights to start off with. Another mailer said, stop the form-based code to prevent urbanization of our town, feeding that panic that somehow White Plains or Gotham, Manhattan, New York City was coming to Newcastle. We needed to cue that Jaws music of it's coming and you should all be afraid. Listen, we can disagree on the form-based code and that's fine. That's absolutely fair, but it should rise and fall on its own merits. And let our words and honest voices be heard and not misinformation. So where are we now? Where do we find ourselves? This town board finds itself at a difficult crossroad, and one that hopefully steers clear of Berenson. Similarly, the future town board is in that same position. Doing what I and others believe is in the best interest of Newcastle to set us on a trajectory for a healthy, vibrant, and inclusive future, or turning over the hamlet's future based on campaign slogans of Unite that I feel will either maintain the status quo or slightly modify the same. And I've said it repeatedly and I'll say it again now. I pray and hope that I'm wrong. I'd rather be wrong every single time if the community is right. I'm smart enough to know that none of us are always right. Even when we are, sometimes a greater good demands we accept that we must allow ourselves to be wrong. Simply being right and doing what is right are not always the same thing. As I have noted before, while I am confident we are taking a step laterally, if not backwards, by not moving forward, in realizing a healthier and more inclusive and vibrant hamlet with diverse housing options and feet on the ground, when it comes to the 2 C's of code and community, the latter wins, whether the voter turnout was 37% or 73%. Despite what some have railed in our meetings and on social media about me, I'm neither ignorant, arrogant, nor bullheaded. Our community is bigger than any one person privileged enough to serve. No matter our names, we are mere placeholders at a particular time in history. Newcastle will continue well after we are gone, and it is our responsibility to best ensure it does in the healthiest way. To that end, again, I believe that the finding statement in the form-based code, with all the modifications and amendments that we made, and how it is informed by what we've done to date, is the right zoning change for this community. Lisa, I do not envy your position, that of your incoming town board members either. You've had 2 months before our new town board sits, and we're going to be dealing with the revitalization and rezoning of the hamlet. We're going to be looking at how to diversify housing. We're going to be looking at how to implement that with the right legislation. You ran on the support of Rush, the residents of 149 King Street who had real and genuine concerns. The former repeatedly asserted that wrong data was used to justify 4-story buildings, and accurate data shows a 3-story limit is economically viable, while the latter at 149 strenuously objected to 4-story buildings along the North Greeley corridor as it impacted their view. And I certainly hope you're going to stay to that promise to them and all this information and advocacy that came behind them, that 4-story buildings, you can do it with 3. And to the people of 149 King Street, you should not have a 4-story building anywhere near your home. You said you would prevent developers from building new apartment buildings that overburden our taxes, while arguing in substance that apartment buildings don't pay their fair share. At the same time, you would increase affordable housing where 10% along with workforce was not enough. Further, I believe you said in some of your mailings that your intent to do all this while also finding more open spaces in the hamlet. Although you argued charrettes as a deputy were not something that needed to be done, you plan on restarting that process, bringing back the planning board for all subdivisions and whatever else we decide, and insisting that there's retail, at least on the east side of Greeley, I don't recall if it was the left, going the entire length to where it is now. Unite Newcastle has had a year to identify a plan and to achieve its goals, and you've had 8 to do the same. Now with the moratorium expiring at the end of this year, a generic environmental impact statement to facilitate whatever you and the incoming town board will do, this community puts its hopes in its future, along with $600,000 in human capital, in your hands. In 2 years, there won't be any speculation. Either we'll have seen the growth and vitality many of us hope for on North Greeley and elsewhere, or we simply won't. I'll add and follow up to something one of my colleagues referenced before. I have not seen your disclosures, all of them, but I understand from what I have seen that there was a $15,000, multiple donations totaling $15,000 from a gentleman who resides here, who is in the real estate business, and his business, quote, looks for opportunities with 50 or more units in, quote, non-prime locations. Additionally, Adam Brodsky, who works for his father-in-law's what I believe to be billion-dollar real estate empire, donated $4,000 via his management company, and he happens to also be your multi-time running mate, served with him, and owns the largest piece, I believe, and I could be wrong, maybe 1.2 acres, Sabrina, of privately held vacant land in the proposed form-based code district, which is right across from the post office. Unlike some folks who have made claims that either I or others were involved with developers, and there was that wonderful letter to the editor that was horrifically defamatory. I'm not insinuating or asserting that you have done anything wrong, but I would just ask that you share, when the time comes, that whatever your communications were with Mr. Brodsky, and if any, with this other gentleman in terms of the development downtown. I am personally, in a short period of time, Lisa, you're going to have the opportunity to lead by example with your words and your actions. And you know I initially encouraged you to run. I thought you'd be a good choice. I think you've even referenced that elsewhere. And unfortunately, along the way and early in the beginning, I said to you that I thought that you'd lost your way, and it became more about winning than winning for a particular reason. I'm not patronizing you when I say that I know you're doing your homework. I know that you believe in something, And I'm confident that you're willing and will stand tall. I hope that you don't allow any political winds to push you in any particular direction you do not approve, and that you're willing to stand and take the hits, even if certain people don't agree. And as I hear sort of the cackles, I think back to one woman who's one of your largest advocates who piled onto you about the award of bid and the lack of transparency about the notice about the downtown infrastructure project. And she actually sang my praise, ironically enough. I think she may be here tonight, as well as my colleague Hala McCoska. And now I'm on the other side. People are finicky. You make a decision, one day they like you, one day they don't. But no matter our personal differences, no matter whether we like one another, whether we're social with one another, it all boils down to Newcastle. And all of it will be set aside. I've stated from the top, and I'll stress again, there is no ego, there's no bullheadedness. I want for your success, because your success, if we're on the same page, is a success for Newcastle. And I hope that all of us, all 5 of us, can find that right solution. So thank you. All right.
So can I just respond to that, since you made a couple allegations?
Okay, go ahead.
So I fully believe, and I've said this for 8 years, and I'm going to say it for at least the next 2 and maybe more. Sorry, Steve. I fully believe that everyone has the right to say what they think. And I appreciate all your comments. And while I may disagree with them, you have the right to say them. And sitting up here, I need to hear them. So I appreciate that. And I do think we will work well together. And as I have also said for 8 years and will continue to say, one thing I've always loved about running on an independent line is because I am not a politician. I run for office because I serve this town. And this is all I care about, is making the town that I love, that I've raised my family in, where I intend to stay, better. And that is all I've ever done. So I will never be swayed by politics. And that's why I didn't go out and seek endorsements from political leaders who are career politicians, because all I care about is Newcastle. And whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or some kind of amalgamation of all of those, as long as you live in Newcastle, you deserve to be represented. Now, there's been, talk on social media about campaign contributions. I find it a little humorous that I'm being told I'm anti-development, yet I'm taking money from developers. So you can't really have it both ways. I feel fortunate that our slate actually has support of many people who looked to us and said, you know what, you're the right people to lead this town forward. Some of those developers were in favor of the form-based code. Most of them were not. And we have very smart people who, for a living, develop properties who said a form-based code is not appropriate for Newcastle and for the Chappaqua Hamlet. So I actually am proud that people who I have run with before and many, many people in town feel that we were simply the right people to move this forward and to bring our community into a more vibrant future. So I am actually proud of that. And then just with regard to lying, my campaign never lied, ever. And in fact, my opponents brought us before the Fair Election Campaign Board, a nonpartisan board. They filed a lawsuit against us, and they also hired an attorney to argue their case for them, which I didn't realize until I showed up to just argue the case on behalf of Unite Newcastle. And you know what? This nonpartisan committee found for us on every single count. So, I understand losing is tough, and I understand that we've been working hard on this form-based code, and especially town staff. You've been working tirelessly on this, and we appreciate it because I think a lot of it will be able to be utilized going forward. But again, that doesn't mean we move forward with it just because it's been done and time has been spent on it. And it doesn't mean that we lied. It just means that people have realized it's just not the right thing for our community. So, thank you.
Okay, so instead of us going back and forth, which will serve no greater good, Ed, since we're tabling this, there's really nothing to do right now other than move on to the next stage of our evening.
That's right, no votes required.
Okay, super. All right. I may have lost my spot, so.
So the next thing on our agenda is administrative items. We've got payment of claims. Does the board have any questions on that?
No, I do not.
Next is the adoption of monthly reports for October. Any questions?
Nope.
Next is an authorization to set a public hearing for the 2022 budget. That's going to be for December 7th.
Okay,
And authorization to settle the 2019-2020 tax certiorari proceeding for Yablon that we discussed in executive session.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If there's no further questions, that is the extent of the work session. And we can move into the town board meeting
Okay.
for the resolutions.
so you want to move? We're gonna public comment. We're gonna public, whoever just said that, we're gonna public comment in the town board meeting, so yes, you can.
Should I just
You can just adjourn and
move?
move.
Okay, I move to adjourn the work session.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And you move to,
And I move to open the town board meeting.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I have misplaced my,
Do you need another one?
no, I got it.
We got it.
All right, before we get into any public comment or new business, Jill, any announcements?
I do. So I've got an update on the Duck Pond pedestrian pathway.
Tell us good.
We've received plans for the temporary stabilization of the Duck Pond pedestrian pathway that's been closed since Hurricane Ida's floodwaters compromised the integrity of the foundation of the raised walkway. DPW crews have started working on stabilizing the walkway, and we hope to be able to reopen the bridge to pedestrians sometime in December this year. We are then going to go out to bid for a long-time replacement solution for the aging structure, either rebuilding it in place or rebuilding in another location in the vicinity. And that project will be let out to RFP over the next several weeks. The 2022 refuse and recycling schedule is being finalized. It's currently being proofed by staff, and it will be ready for mailing at the end of the month and will be in mailboxes before the end of the year.
Hey, Jill, on that, are we going to include the Recycle Right link for that mailing?
If we've got it.
I don't know that,
that's-
I
Because
kind of
does it
doubt it
start
will
in
be
January?
ready yet.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it might start in, I don't think that it will be populated with all of the town's data.
Oh, bummer.
And the information.
Yeah.
The recycling calendar is actually one of the few, pieces of mail that I get that I hold on to religiously. It does in fact live on our website, though, in the refuse and recycling section of DPW, and I guarantee that there will be a full rollout of that Recycle Right website once it's fully populated and we, just get all the information in it that we hope to. So, what the recycling calendar does have this year, though, so far, is that we do have the confidential paper shredding dates. They're already set. So they'll go out as well, and so those key dates will be updated for 2022. And last but not least, the United States Air Force Band is going to be here this Saturday at 3:30, performing free of charge at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. The program is being co-sponsored with the library, and it's also going to be the first performance where our Epic Ambassador ushers will be working. So
Good.
we're really excited to be launching this program and offering
That's great.
employment opportunities for these individuals. It's been a great effort, and we're just so excited about it. So I'm hoping the community will come out, obviously see the U.S. Air Force Band, but also say hi to our Epic Ambassador ushers. They're going to be so excited to see you guys. Thank you.
Super. All right, so I'm not going to have a supervisor's report, but I did want to share something. I was in communication with and had a meeting this morning that this town board will start, and I'm confident the new town board will run with. Carrie, can you put it up on the screen? So Street Art for Mankind, they are not-for-profit, and they do real wonderful, when I say legitimate and genuine artistic street art, huge murals, mostly in the communities we don't want to be like, which is New York City and more urban areas. But nonetheless, they do terrific murals, and they tell a story in a particular area, and they bring people to those areas to look and see the beautiful work and follow a potential path. So, for example, and this is by no means something that's married to it, but we have an overpass over the Sawmill River Parkway. Jill and I were discussing, for example, we have our dumpster and we have the fence that goes to the train station. We can put some sort of wall there. But then also private landowners that are willing, building owners that are willing to put these murals on, and it's a minimum of 1 year you're asked to keep it, but certainly you can extend it more. And I think it'll be pretty exciting and a neat opportunity, but we're just starting these conversations now. It'll bring foot traffic in. Hopefully people want to see, what we have in the hamlet. It would be a great addition. It's something to consider. So I'm excited about this as we move it forward, and Lisa, we'll move it forward or do whatever you guys decide, but I think it's a great opportunity. Even at the Chat Pack potentially, although we would have to figure out how that would work. You can, in theory, have a mural somewhere there, but there's the issue with private property and public property being used.
So the good thing is, this is great. I actually have spoken to a number of private landlords in town, both in Millwood and Chappaqua, and they do want to put murals on the sides
terrific.
of their buildings. So we've actually been already talking to them about things, but this is a great option as well.
So they're going to come
I
next.
will look at it.
They're going to come next week. That's a plan for our next week work session. So we can at least start that
Great.
process, and the future town board, if they see that it's valuable, can run with it.
I
all
just
right.
saw the Banksy exhibit today, who does street art, and it's
Well, I don't know if we're going to Banksy. I'll see what we can do. Maybe Banksy spelled differently.
He might be inspired now.
All right, thank you, Carrie. So that's all I have for now. I assume you don't have an administrator's report, Jill? I assume you don't have an administrator's report? No. Okay, so some people want to ask questions, so public comment, feel free if you have a comment, or please, by all means, just come up and state who you are and your residence. Do you need someone to bring it to you? You all right?
I'm Anne-Marie Jurgensen.
Just if you could just
Very
read.
outspoken. I'm quite outspoken, as everybody knows. Now, you want to table the FBC. What does that mean? Are you trying to kick it down the road
Well,
for
no-
future years?
So nothing can happen unless there's a majority of the town board to bring it back. And I think from a practical standpoint, and Ed, tell me if I'm wrong, if in 8 years or 10 years from now someone wants to restart this, things will have changed. We've never accepted a finding statement, so I can't speak of what someone else wants to do. But it's done.
Why can't the FBC just be killed?
I don't know if it just doesn't proceed.
Just say
Ed.
no,
It's
been-
legislation.
It's been,
Yeah,
it's been defeated.
correct, but I don't think there's a mechanism to do anything other than not do anything at all. Is that right, Ed?
That's right.
I'm not a lawyer, but why can't it just, go away?
It just did.
it did.
Yeah,
So why are you trying to table it?
I think it was just a term, I think it was just.
It was
I
just
know
a
it's a
term.
term.
Just a
I've
term.
read it in Robert's Rules 10th edition over 15 years ago. Tabling isn't just tabling, it's like putting it on the back burner.
I don't know what word you'd prefer, but it's not moving forward. And I don't believe anyone on the future town board wants to move it forward. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that
just want some sort of reassurance, because I feel that tabling it'll be like a
I don't know what to
specter
do.
arising.
In my view, I, as the, supervisor-elect, I will not be putting the form-based code back
No,
on.
I know you won't.
All right, so
And I believe this town board said it will not be voted upon.
Okay.
And
Well,
because there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, because there's no finding statement, that means at this juncture, a future town board
Would have to adopt
cannot just rely on the finding statement to then adopt a form-based code.
Okay, well, that's not really reassurance for me. When I first read the FBC, I wasn't thinking of it on a political perspective at all.
Right.
And I'm a Republican, you know that. Born and bred Republican, but I vote for the platform. and I voted Democrat many, many times. And a lot of accusations were made towards me. Why am I supporting you? I could hurt your campaign, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I thought that was really mean-spirited. But I'm against the form-based code because I don't think it's right. And I do come from a small town in Marin County, California. Ever heard of that?
Of course.
Bet you have. And San Anselmo was great. It was like no more than 2 stories. It was a large downtown. And it was packed. I mean, why are we talking about more retail space when we can't even fill the current retail space, both here as well as that awful-looking Chappaqua Crossing?
So, might I suggest that, because no one here is misrepresenting, nothing's happening before this town board. If it issue rises again and raises again about how it's going to be done, which it will in some capacity, please, by all means, share your thoughts.
Well, I just don't want it to come again, you know.
Right.
Let's work on what we have and
Right.
filling that.
Absolutely.
And then before thinking about more retail space, that it's going to be vacant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to come up and share their thoughts, comments? John, you're slow. You got beaten. Yep, just please state your name and residence.
Okay, so I'm Ren Shi Liu. I live in at the 38 Oak Hill Road in Chappaqua,
You
New
can
York.
bend that down if, yeah.
Chappaqua, New York? Okay, so that's great. First of all, I think that the current town board made a graceful decision not to proceed with the phone-based code, so thank you. And then a lot of Asian families were here, and Lauren, your policy difference, it doesn't matter. I think you're a role model for us, engaging public life, and thank you very much.
That's very sweet. Thank you very much.
And Laurie, I read your statement on your Facebook, written on November 4th. It's also very graceful, and thank you for reaching out to our community. So thank you. Jeremy, you're always colorful and interesting. And
Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone in this room has probably ever said about me, at least on this side right here. I'll take it. I'll just cut it off there. Leave it. Be done.
and you still
I'm smiling.
you still be on the town board, and then I hope that you will work with the future town board and then make things forward. So as I wrote before, Lauren, Laurie, I hope both of you remain in public life, and then keep engaged, and keep the future town board honest, right? And Lisa, and thank you very, very much to represent many of us. And I hope the future town board will work together to make the community better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get up here, John. Hurry up. Someone's going to beat you.
Hi, all. I am going to,
Name, sir?
excuse me?
Name, sir?
Yeah, my name is John Ehrlich, and I do live close by, and so I'm very interested in the continued development of this town, as well as the area, as well as this particular facility. And there are non-political things that I think we can all talk about and agree on. And whatever they are, let's get to it. We are here to help each other to make the town better, and we should encourage that particular aspect. If it's this venue, if it's this area, we have a lot of land in this town, a lot of things that we can do positively in. I look forward to doing that. As I did, you know, I could recite some names before. There's leaders in this town have stirred some controversy in the past. Let's talk about what we can all agree on. And one of the things that I like to do, first off, before everybody leaves today, please pick up this wonderful little brochure that talks about 4 performances. I don't know if everybody here even knows that there will be concerts on Friday, November 19th. The Eagles are not coming, but people who like the Eagles will be on November 28th. You've got a feast of laughs, and it does not involve the town board, at least not directly, maybe in the audience. I don't know how many people have twins. I do, but the Edwards twins are going to be coming to do I guess, improvisations of famous people. But we've got a lot of famous people in this town. And to bring them together in performing venues, to create cultural spaces throughout the town, this is something that I think we all can agree on. And I think we can all contribute together to make our life in town as nice as it can be. We have great people. We have wonderful people. We have smart people. We have talented people. And just to bring us all together to do the right thing and to have a good time while we're doing it, I think is a desirable attribute. So as this board retires and as a new board comes together, let's all sing together and let it be songs of praise, songs of celebration, and songs of togetherness. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Anyone else here? Carrie, anyone online? Oh, hold on. Go ahead.
Rob Fleischer, Oak Hill Road, Chappaqua. One, if we can keep people have their masks when they come up to here, that'd be kind of a plus. But I just wanted to say a couple things. One, I wanted to thank the board for their actions tonight. They're greatly appreciated by this resident of the town. Two, I wanted to speak directly. I've spoken to mostly two of you during this process. And in my conversations with Lauren, who was the other person I spoke to mostly besides Lisa, I do want to acknowledge it as someone who's been speaking to you probably since early 2019 at this point, or mid-2019. Your heartfelt feelings, about wanting to move the hamlet forward were every conversation we had, that was it. That's what you led with. And that's how you felt. There was nothing else there. And any of these, from my perspective, ridiculous charges of conflicts of interest, calls for recusal, any of the charges that were ever made about corruption, which I've pushed back on every single one, I think were a bunch of BS. And even though they didn't come from me, I want to put those to bed. And I would really, from this community, rather not hear any more about that, because none of this was about corruption or any of that other kind of stuff. It was about differences of visions. And people are allowed to have differences of visions. They're allowed to have very athletic discussions about those differences. But any of those things I thought were inappropriate. And I really hope that the community will not bring those up again. But going back there, I don't want that to get lost, that every time I spoke with you, I wanted to be publicly said, all you cared about was the best interest of the community, and every conversation, that's all it was about. And I wanted to acknowledge that publicly, and even though I was pushing in a different direction, and there's nothing inappropriate about meeting one-on-one with the constituent, you were true to that. You stayed true to that tonight, and I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly.
Thank you.
Two, I
Thank you, Rob.
I also wanted to hope that as we go forward here, and hopefully we'll be at some point in the future where we're meeting a little closer together. I think the Zoom thing works pretty well for encouraging more participation. And even though I'd rather see people here, and I think there's a huge benefit of face-to-face, I hope the board will consider, and the town will consider, using these Zoom platforms to make it easier for the people on the staff who are attending, and for more people who can't make it here in person, because for any variety of reasons, to participate. I think that's important, and I think it improves our process. I also don't think, and as much as it may seem like it, I think there is a path forward that can satisfy a great deal of the community that will benefit from all the work that was done. And even though I took great exception about the actual proposal, I don't think, and I think I've said this many times publicly, that the differences were so great they could not have been bridged. And I'm sorry that we did not find a way to find that middle spot. But I hope that we can continue working towards that place, so we can find that, so we can find revitalization on an expedited basis. I believe that everybody who I know wants to see that. And it was, it was disheartening, as I'm sure people were disheartened on other characterizations to hear that people wanted absolutely no change. And I don't think that nobody I knew wanted that. So thank you again for your decision tonight. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in the audience?
Suzanne Chazen, Chappaqua. I just want to say that I know this has been a contentious battle, but I myself, as an example, I've lived here 24 years. I'm not at all political. Never been involved in politics, not even especially involved in the town as much as I should have been. But now, because of this, and thanks to this, I am more involved in the town. I think a lot of people are. I think that's a good thing that came out of this. I realize for the town staff this has been exhausting, but I also think that it's been energizing in a way. And I guess one of the things I would say is, since I never approached this from a political standpoint, I would ask that even those who may, to now put that aside and stop approaching it from a political standpoint and say, this is where we are, this is the town we love, what can we do, how can we build it? I feel more energized. I hope everyone does. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
No, please, but no, by all means, take your time.
My name is Billy Roach. I live on Orchard Ridge Road. I've lived here 47 years, and I did not want any change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we see if anyone's in the audience? Pardon me, online. Carrie, is anyone in Zoom?
If anyone's interested in speaking, just raise your digital hand. I don't see anyone right now.
All right, super. All right, let's move the ball forward. So
Okay.
we removed some things from the consent agenda.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there are 4 items on the consent agenda. I think that's accurate.
Okay,
Yeah, it's good.
Was the police officer removed from that?
Yes.
Okay, it was, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Bueller?
so we can move to resolutions?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
great. I move to adopt the consent agenda as submitted, consisting of the following: adoption of monthly reports, October, authorization to set a public hearing on the 2022 budget, December 7th, 2021. Folks in the audience, that is a very important meeting, December 7th, 2021. It is the budget meeting. Authorization to settle, I'm not joking, authorization to settle 2019 to 2020 tax authority, I apologize that I'm mispronouncing that, proceedings, Yablon.
Close enough.
Resolution authorizing the town to issue a reimbursement for penalties paid.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $270,266.01 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail report, both dated November 5th, 2021. Checks will be cut and mailed to each claimant listed on Friday, November 12th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the hiring of Taylor Strang to the position of fourth grade police officer within the Town of Newcastle Police Department at the annual salary of $73,730 effective December 13, 2021, or the date Westchester County approves the resignation reinstatement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to author the hiring of Mina Skolnick and Patrick Bennett for the position of recreation attendant, 275-05, within Recreation and Parks Department to serve as drivers for seniors at the hourly rate of $16 per hour, effective November 17th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the hiring of the following individuals to the position of recreation attendant, 275-05, to serve as EPIC ambassadors at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center at the hourly rate of $14 an hour, effective November 11th, 2021. Leora Siegel, Christian Vicente, Hojin Lee, Robert Simmons, Nicholas Hain, Kyle Sizowitz, Joseph Ferreras.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize appointment of Jennifer Mebus Flagg to the position of co-chair for the Sustainability Advisory Board for a period of 6 months, effective November 11th, 2021 to May 31st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What is this, sad, leave it another sad?
Just do
Second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I move to authorize the appointment of Kent Thomas to the Sustainability Advisory Board for a 2-year term effective November 1st, 2021 to October 31st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to adopt the following resolution. Resolved that the town board hereby authorizes town board members-elect Victoria Tipp and Tara Castle, together with Chris Hildebrand as a prospective appointive town board member, to attend all remaining executive sessions of the town board in 2021, and to receive such documents and information as the acting town supervisor or town administrator deem appropriate to facilitate their transition to their official positions.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We also have an add-on. Yep.
Yep, and we also have a proclamation declaring this National American Indian Heritage Month. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August 1990, designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month. And whereas in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now, therefore, the town of Newcastle hereby proclaims November as National American Indian Heritage Month in Newcastle.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's the last one, right?
Yep.
That's the last
All
one.
right, so we're going to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Hope it's so easy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Carrie. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.